Blood Money, episode 30. Reclaiming Our Freedom with Ann Vandersteel. All right, we're on the next episode of Blood Money, episode 30, with the wonderful Ann Vandersteel. And the topic of this episode is reclaiming our freedom. How you doing, Ann?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm out here in Colorado. The snow is coming down like crazy where we are right now. It's going to snow all weekend, and then we'll let the locals enjoy some time off. All the people coming in town are going to shred the slopes, and then hopefully we'll hit it back on Monday after
Awesome.
work, of course.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So I'm going to paint a little portrait here. This is kind of my narrative. Tell me how accurate this is. So I think there was a
Okay.
time about like 10 years ago that with YouTube rising and all these talented individuals rising, that we actually had this incredible moment of freedom of speech like we've never seen in this country before, because the mainstream media has always controlled the narrative. And there was this moment in time, seems like between like 2000 and 2010, and like 2016 or so, where people are really, able to come up, not through the mainstream media apparatus. And I think somewhere in there around, 20, I mean, I'm sure earlier on, but around 2020, the globalists really wanted to clamp down on that, because it was introducing populism and the rise of Trump and all that stuff. I think scared the hell out of them. So do you think that's kind of an accurate version of, how things transpired? Or
Well, I think we have to look back. Yes, I think that's overall in generality, yes. But the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act under Obama, really is what changed everything, because, media was never allowed to be weaponized and turned into a propaganda machine like it is today, legally. And so legally now they've allowed that to become a mainstream media propaganda, to what everything is brought to you by Pfizer. And Pfizer, we now know, is the manufacturer of a bioweapon, and they're still trying to do that. They're not calling it gain of function. They're calling it, directed evolution, which is like, what? Okay. So, we have to get our arms around the fact that everything we know is a lie. But yes, they have now legitimized their ability to lie to us through their public-private partnerships of big tech and government and big corporations like the medical industrial wasteland complex. And they have also built the technology for themselves. We were allowed access to it. Obama gave away ICANN, which is making it problematic. Another tool they have in their arsenal to silence us. But we were able to be effective very well, and we still are. We've become nimble. We have new, necessities and mother invention. So new technologies coming up along the way, but they've tried to slow us down, and they did, but that caused us to become nimble and spread out and go in different directions. And so while there was a massive boom in all the YouTubers, we also saw a lot of YouTubers like myself get thrown off. I've been thrown off pretty much every platform except for the new ones that have come out, including LinkedIn. So yeah, I mean, we're just we're watching this evolution, but the gut of the people, the DNA of our freedom, which comes from every American. This is the country that everybody looks to, the great experiment. We still have it in our DNA to strive for that, and which is why our country has always been the country people try to exit to. And now you're seeing sort of a reverse migration, because people are like, wait a minute, it's not what we thought it was when we got here. And like, well, we might as well go home to where our friends and family are. But yeah, that's a good overview.
There's a topic. I mean, it's not a popular topic, but there was an act, I think, that Reagan repealed, which was, I think, the Fairness Doctrine, it was called, where whenever the news was told, they were supposed to show both sides of the story. That was repealed. That started to start a little bit of a partisan kind of wave of news. I mean, do you think that was also potentially part of the issue? Or
Anytime you have government intervene in anything, you have the exact opposite consequence of what the language intends it to be. I mean, just look at every single agency, their name, what they're doing, and you get the exact opposite result of what they're supposed to be delivering in name only. So, look at, you pick an agency, give me a name of an agency. Department of Education. Really, it's the Indoctrination Center. The Center for Disease and Control is more like Center for Disease and Corruption, or Death and Corruption. FDA, NIA, all of them. Just, go through the list and look at the, like, FTX, right? That whole scandal. That was really just their patsy for the CFTC to say, hey, we need to regulate all of cryptocurrency. And the only reason they wanted to do that is because they see what BRICS are doing with their basket of gold-backed currencies, and they see that they're starting their own blockchain, gold-backed blockchain, which is going to go head to head with the central banking cabal's central bank digital currency, which is to replace the U.S. dollar.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, people aren't going to go with that because 65% of the world now is in the BRICS basket of currencies. So they're losing that war too. Hence
Wow.
why we're seeing so much turmoil, Ukraine, et cetera, famine, pandemic, war, all of it's coming down to the bankers controlling all these industries that they are over, and they have their tools on Wall Street like Larry Fink and BlackRock to finance this stuff. So, and then of course they own the financial markets and the banking, so that they're financing war. I mean, this is the game in which we are the pawns, but we need to know who the players are so that we can stand up, and we have our own tools that we can use. So, and we
Hmm.
need to become educated on them, and this is how we get out of the system.
Yeah, I mean, how did they, for the viewer that doesn't understand, how did they steal our freedoms from us? Before we get to the topic of how we reclaim them.
Well, you have to go back in history. So first of all, the Department of Education, or the Department of Indoctrination, is really what it is. Thanks to Jimmy Carter in 1879, has rewritten our history books, and they've been slowly doing that anyway. The last 150 years, our history is pretty much a lie. They've covered everything up and obfuscated the truth. But if you go back to right after the end of the Civil War in 1868, up until that point, Wes, we had the Revolutionary War, we had the War of 1812, and then we had the Civil War. Wars begot wars because they got debts. Debts came from war, and when you couldn't pay the debt, you went to war.
Mhm.
Right now, the entire world is on a massive, we're on a debt scale that the world can't sustain in the hundreds of trillions. Hence, we've got wars because central bankers don't want to pay off debts. Countries don't want to pay off debts.
Mhm.
So in 1868, after the Civil War ended, the union said, listen, we're going to get the band back together. And if you want to be part of the band, you've got to become a United States citizen. Well, up until 1868, we were all citizens of our states. We were electing our public servants. What changed in 1868 was the 14th Amendment, which made it was about naturalization, right? But it really made everybody a U.S. citizen. And ergo, you were no longer considered a citizen of your state, even though you resided in your state. But you were a citizen of the United States. And 3 years later, by the way, when that happened, two states, New Jersey and Ohio, protested loudly. They understood what this meant. They realized they were going to give up. This was going to sort of usurp 10th Amendment rights of the states' sovereignty and
Mhm.
the class of citizens that lived in that state. So 3 years later, after 1868, we saw the Organic Act of 1871, which created the USDC, which was the incorporation of the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And that was called the United States. So the 14th Amendment citizen, now that you are now part of that United States. And that's a corporation making you a municipal servant, or a citizen, which is also a municipal servant, i.e., you really are a shareholder and a part of the payroll of the United States. So you've now exchanged your God-given rights that was being defended under the United States or the Constitution for the United States of America, and you've now become you've been exchanging your rights by God for your privileges by the United States. And that's when the funding, layers of funding, started applying, all the different ways they've taxed you, they've stolen your birthright, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow, wow. So how do we get out of such a system?
Well, so if you understand, all foundation of law starts with the Bible, right? Our founding fathers who wrote our papers, which
Mhm.
is our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and our Declaration of Independence, right? Those are our founding papers, the most important papers we have, and that was all predicated on biblical law. And if you understand the Bible in Genesis 1:26, God gave man dominion over the earth. That's dominion over the land, the air, and the water. That's your LAW. Okay.
Mhm.
And creator was invoked 4 times in our founding fathers' papers. So that being said, our constitutional law is rooted in the Bible. And it's
Mhm.
critical that man understands, if you are going to have dominion over your land, air, and the water, the law of the land is your constitutional law. The law of the air is your ecclesiastical trust law. And your law of the water is your admiralty and statutory and administrative law. Government, God created man, man created government. Government operates down here below us in statutory, admiralty, law of commerce. That's their regulatory laws. And people who work for the government have to abide by and govern themselves and operate under those statutory laws. Free men and women up here in the Constitution, the law of the land, which is above all that,
Mhm.
actually operate under the law of the Constitution, and our rights are defended from the people that work for us below with our Bill of Rights. So, and of course, the trust law and the ecclesiastical law is higher. That's, how you operate things in trust. Well, what we need to do as free men and women is reclaim our status as free men and women and claim jurisdiction over all areas of ecclesiastical law of the land and, of course, admiralty law. Because man can't stand in water, we sink, but we stand on land. And so this is really important that we understand that that was taken from us when they created the birth certificates in 1907. And that's what created your straw man of yourself, your corporate fiction of yourself with your all caps name and your
Mhm.
social security number. So they've created another entity that became chattel that they've used to trade. That's how they monetize the governments. And they've been doing this worldwide. So again, they needed to have us become members of a corporation so that they could then monetize us as chattel in that corporation. And this is how they've stolen our freedom without us really understanding. Again, we thought we were getting benefits from the government. Oh, Social Security and health care and all, student loans and, welfare, et cetera. Well, you've given away your freedom in exchange for these funded, and now we
Mhm.
know they're underfunded liability risks. So
Yeah, yeah. Which explains socialism pretty much. Is
pretty
it?
much.
Yeah, I mean, so they consider us in the water, right? That's something that I've heard. That as a citizen, you're basically not even on the land. You're like 3 miles out, somewhere in the middle of the ocean.
Right. They've basically cast you lost at sea. There's a whole, I mean, Bobby Lawrence is a great friend. He ran for Senate in Pennsylvania in 2016, sorry, for 2018. He withdrew, even though he was up 10 points in the race, he withdrew to pursue this. He was asked specifically to focus in on this subject and help educate people, and he's done an amazing job. But yes, for the corporate citizen, for the person, because that's what they are, a person who has not corrected their status to become one of we the people. I am one of we the people now, as I have corrected my status and gone through the process of removing myself from the corporation, no longer allowing them to have claim over my my foreign corporate status. I am now a living free woman back on the law of the land or on the land. For those people that have not, yes, you are considered a corporate fiction, and corporate fiction operates in commerce, in the law of commerce, admiralty law, and that is like considered being lost at sea. There's when you walk into a court, right? It's like when you're approaching the bench, you've got to go through the bar, right? You've got to
Hmm.
step through that bar, and you have to ask your honor, may I approach the bench? That you have to be given permission. It's sort of like boarding a
Hmm.
ship. You ask the captain, may I have permission to board the ship? It's the same sort of idea, if you will. But
Hmm.
there's a reason when you're a corporation, you're not a living entity. I mean, name a company that's not a living entity. The people that work there are, but the
Yeah.
corporation isn't. And
Hmm.
so you have to have somebody represent the corporation, which is why when corporations sue each other, you have attorneys. But don't you find it strange that you have to have an attorney represent a living people?
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason you do, is because you're not a people, you're a person, you're a corporate fiction of yourself with your social security in all caps name. That's why you have an attorney to represent the dead entity to the magistrate and speak on behalf, because you're dead, you can't speak.
Do lawyers understand all this stuff, or you think they're tricked by? I know the legal societies run the law schools, so they're not teaching law; they're teaching legal. They want the legal society version, but do you think they know?
Vam, that's a great question. It's sort of, I can put this very simply in the context of what we've just gone through with with the COVID pandemic.
Hmm.
Doctors that were taking spoon-fed protocols from the CDC, especially in the hospital setting, and just murdering patients by the hundreds of thousands, millions, in fact, worldwide, given the protocol of remdesivir and ventilators. So they've been brainwashed by the same entity, which is the Rockefellers that started the American Medical Association, that started the big pharmaceutical industrial complex using petroleum based products in lieu of organic supplements right here on earth that God created, which have
Yeah.
become much more efficacious than what big pharma has ever produced. That being said, people that go through law school and become attorneys are in this of the same mindset. It's the indoctrination, right? It's just sort of like if, you tell a child every day of his life from the day he's born till he's, walking down the aisle at 30 years old, Santa Claus is real. They're going to believe Santa's really real. And I hate to
Yeah.
break it to you, Santa's a great idea, but you've never seen a Santa Claus like flying over over your
Hmm.
house at night and landing on your roof. So we've got to separate reality from fiction. And unfortunately, lawyers, doctors, they have been indoctrinated. Not all of them. A very good friend of mine, attorney Todd Callender with Truth for Health Foundation, brilliant man. He understands fully what I'm talking about. In fact, he believes in it so much, he's had me speak on behalf of in a variety of things that he's engaged in. And he's been battling the deep state and the military and a whole other bunch of government entities on this whole coronavirus pandemic and saving literally that hundreds of thousands of lives in this whole process. So
Wow.
yes, some do, some don't. But once you start explaining this and you explain that the Bar Association was created the same year that the United States was incorporated in 1871,
Hmm.
you needed the Bar Association because you need attorneys for corporations. It's just they
Hmm.
go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, do you buy this idea that I've heard many stories about how essentially when we booted the British out, the way that they got back at us was through the Bar Association by having a lot of lawyers come within our system. 13th Amendment, which was against titles of nobility, which would have
Right.
taken out all the esquires, which would have meant that our Congress, state legislatures wouldn't be filled with a bunch of bar agents, hence making the entire thing a conflict of interest. Do you buy that this was essentially something that happened from overseas?
Uh, well, yes, I do actually. I absolutely subscribe to that. I don't believe the British have ever really left. I think this has been a constant war with the City of London and the Crown to actually continue to control and own what we're doing here. I mean, just look at, like you said, in 1809, 1819, the 13th Amendment was promulgated in various states all over the country, and original 13th Amendments have been found in books, in constitutions. I think 18 of them around the various states, one in Maine, Virginia, various states. I can't name them all. I could look it up. But because I have read all this and I've seen it. But you're right. They did not want titles of nobility, aka esquires, right?
Hmm.
Which are attorneys and bankers. They didn't want them running around in public service jobs, which is what we have running around Capitol Hill. A majority of the people up there are some kind of an attorney. I do definitely believe the Crown is still involved. When you look at what we did after World War II, for instance, with Five Eyes, right? Getting
Hmm.
together all the English speaking countries and saying, we're going to, support each other on intelligence. Well, now we have a rogue surveillance state, an intelligence state that has just gone completely wild. And without certain aspects of the intelligence agencies, most notably what Michael Corey, who's an amazing investigative journalist, talks about, the Erickson Report.
Hmm.
Everybody should go to the ericksonreport.com and read about it, because in 1996, the Telecommunications Act was passed under Bill Clinton, which really helped give the surveillance state the ability to just grow on steroids. 9/11 could not have happened without it. And of course, from that, we got Patriot Act. And we now know clearly from information that we're getting that the CIA had their hand in the execution of JFK. But we also know the CIA is not technically supposed to operate here on this soil. But how do they get around it? Well, they call their friends over at MI5 or 6 and in the UK and say, hey, we have a problem child here. Can you come take care of business for us? Because those agencies can operate outside their own country legally, but they cannot operate inside their country. So they call their friends, and their
Hmm.
friends are in the Five Eyes intelligence community. So again, this is all very much by design, Vem. It's very
Hmm.
much by design. And we just need to get this information out in front of the people so that people realize, wait a minute, our Constitution doesn't talk about these intelligence agencies. It doesn't talk about any of these unconstitutional agencies. And we, the people, if you read your own state constitution, have the power to just say no. We don't need to say, we don't need to listen to these people anymore. We can just say we're starting over. It's in every single state constitution that people have the power, and it's whenever they choose, not every 2 or 4 years.
Yep, yep. And by the way, regarding the Erickson report, we're actually the first podcast to expose that. The first time Michael Corey came out with that, we were actually, yeah, I think it was like Blood Money episode 12. We did a live, and it was awesome. I know all about the Erickson report, and
Yep. I was just talking to him about an hour ago. I talk to him every day. He's a great guy.
yeah, yeah, Michael's awesome. So essentially, under this kind of fraudulent system they've created, we all work for the government technically, right?
Technically, correct.
Technically.
Don't we
So
work more than half the year in taxes?
exactly. And we're all supposed to be located in DC, which is part of the fraud. We're actually not
Right.
living in the District of Columbia, which is a 10 square
But
mile radius.
but you know what they do? Do you know what the
Uh-huh.
zip code represents, right? Your
Uh,
zip code is a federal district. That's a federal territory. So, as a state national, I will address my envelope care of my number and street address or my PO box. and I write near and in brackets the zip code, because I
Hmm.
will not acknowledge that I live in their federal territory, because I have removed myself from the United States, which includes all territories that are subject to United States, statutory law.
Yeah.
So you have to be very the jurisdiction, right? Where you stand and what you say, the words matter.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, we have a show that we're premiering tomorrow called The State National University, where every week we're going to do a different class about this whole process and
I love
trying
it.
to
Are you
teach
doing it with
people.
Lisa Phillips? Who are you doing it with?
We're Gianna Micheli, who's a lady in Las Vegas, and she's really talented. She's got a couple of books on the topic and really has a great way of explaining it. That was a challenge I had initially when I started like researching this stuff. It was always a little too much to kind of understand because you're literally changing your way of thinking completely, right? And then I ran into Gianna and also another guy by the name of Brandon Joe Williams, which they kind of Brandon especially makes a comedy act out of it. So it's just a lot
That's
more
great.
digestible. He
That's
tells
awesome.
he tells his fans to go F themselves. He has this really crude sense of humor, but it's just hilarious. He gets dressed up as a cucumber too, funny guy. But all right, so is state nationalism really the solution to reclaiming our freedoms? Is that the answer for people, or is there something missing from that equation?
So I believe, yes, it is, because what we've become, if I look past the 12th Amendment, pretty much everything else after that is unconstitutional. So if we are going to be purists in what our founding fathers scribed on parchment paper 250 years ago, we've got to be honest about what's happened to our country. And
Hmm.
so again, as I said earlier, we were electing our public servants. And if you read anything about history, if you were the guy that owned the farm or the blacksmith, and that your village or your state or your city or whatever chose you to go and represent, it was really a hardship, because if you didn't have a son of the right age or whatever, I mean, typically they
Hmm.
maneuvered around those things. They tried to pick families in the position to be able to do this, but it was a hardship, right? Today, it's a glory job. You get pretty
Hmm.
much mostly losers that want to do this because, they're getting at Congress $175,000 a year. And then they pass legislation that moves the needle in the stock market. And oh, by the way, they know that's coming. So they invest and they make millions. And you wonder why these people go in with not a pot to piss in and they come out multimillionaires. Well, it's because they have all the inside baseball information. So we really need to stop that. And what's happened after everything started to get incorporated, we incorporated Washington, D.C., ergo the United States. Then states started to incorporate, and then counties and cities and municipalities. And you'll know sometimes in your, depending on where you live in either incorporated or unincorporated counties or villages or what have you. Well, there's a reason for that. So it's because there's a liability shield that comes with that. And of course, when they started incorporating everything, you no longer were a public servant of the people. You became a corporate
Hmm.
employee of the government. The all cap state of, I live in Florida, all cap state of Florida. That's a corporation. Some say that's so that you can do commerce and contracts. Well, you know what? Yes, that is because you've now created this corporate construct to do all that. But we were trading and doing all kinds of things before that. We didn't have that corporate construct. So I say we need to go back and be purists. And with everything, of course, there's pain, but there's a lot more gain to be had, because now the people are the stakeholders and we have a say in the people that are representing us. We don't even have a say in that now. We think we have free and fair elections. We now know that's a bunch of BS. I
Hmm.
mean, I had Christina Bobb on today, President Trump's attorney, who's spent a lot of time covering what's going on in Arizona. And she just wrote a book about all the election theft. This is a joke. We don't have any representation. It's not real. We're
Hmm.
living in a de facto government world, which is a fake government. It's not of the people. So we have all these abandoned positions that are all over the country that were of the Republic of Texas or the Republic of Florida or whatever. We have all these constitutionally created positions to represent people abandoned for the for-profit corporation. We need to start and reconstitute and fill those positions. That can be done. And there are states right now working towards that. They really are. I'd like to become more involved in getting Florida reorganized like that. And hopefully Ron DeSantis, with all the moves he's making, will actually see the merit in doing that. Because you have your 10th Amendment, your state's rights that you can really rest your laurels on. And, I asked Christina today, I said, should Ron DeSantis have stepped in when they were raiding President Trump? Could he have done something more? And she said, well, no, they had a warrant. And I say, well, yes, they could have. If we were standing as a true free state and
Hmm.
standing on our 10th Amendment, we could have told anybody from the federal government to take a Heisman and get the hell out of Dodge.
Wow, wow. All right. So, if for people that want to get into this whole process, do you have a recommendation of what's the best avenue for them to get into the whole state national process in order to reclaim their freedoms?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So I really like what they're doing over at statenational.us. Lisa Phillips, Bobby Lawrence, and a whole team of folks over there. They've done an amazing job of aggregating content like you can't imagine. In fact, um, for the 2 years I've been studying this, I've read a lot on Bobby Lawrence's Telegram channel, and he's done an amazing job of researching. He's got some brilliant people, and they've put out incredible content. She's aggregated all of his content into really discernible um, delivery. I mean, sorry, a very clean delivery of the information and a very way to search and find what you're trying to do. And she's organized it in sort of a timeline. Another book I recommend people is this one right here. It's called Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. It's by
Yes.
J.D. Stamper. This book
Yeah.
is unbelievable. In fact, if I be so bold here, if you look at my book, it is all highlighted and notes. And
Wow.
I mean, the whole thing is like a textbook to me. And I treat it as such because this has taken a lot of the research I've discovered myself in the last couple of years through various sources and condensed it down and added in some extra information to bolster what I already knew. It's freaking fantastic. This will give you the real history of the country, what happened. And I highly recommend it because people don't know. They just don't
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah. It's funny.
statenational.us, Bobby Lawrence, and then this book are phenomenal.
Yeah, it's funny. I love Fruits from a Poison. I actually have it on my desktop as a PDF. It's a great book. There was another one that I think it's called something Slave, like The Land of the Free Home of the Slave. That's another really good one that I want to throw out there. You could get it off of Amazon. You've been doing a lot of work with the Zelenko Foundation. Tell me a little bit about that.
Zev Zelenko, Vladimir Zelenko, what a hero, what a humanitarian freedom fighter, and probably the very first to stand in the gap during the early version of the coronavirus pandemic. I love that picture of him, by the way.
Hmm.
He really was all of that: father, husband, doctor, scientist, freedom fighter, just an amazing, amazing human being. And we did a spaces about him earlier today on Twitter. It was just great. But really, Dr. Zelenko, I think, opened the eyes of a lot of people. And then what we see coming out today with James O'Keefe and Project Veritas exposing Pfizer for the
Hmm.
demons that they are, the blood money thirsty demons that they are. I think Zev set the bar extremely high. I was actually getting over coronavirus after CPAC, and I'd been in bed for 10 days, pretty much comatose. I've never been so sick in my life. And I managed to just gut it out. No medicine, just water and vitamins and whatnot. And I was watching the Trump press conference that he did nightly, if you remember, in the early days.
Hmm.
And he was
Hmm.
talking about this doctor from New York sent him a letter, and he was talking about hydroxychloroquine. He said, I don't know much about it, but I feel really good about it. And Fauci bum rushed the podium and said, we got to do a double-blinded, placebo-controlled study. So I immediately
Hmm.
jumped on my phone and I'm looking it up, and I see a study from the NIH in 2003 on hydroxychloroquine and coronavirus. I'm like, what is he talking
Wow.
about? His NIH. He's lying. And then I went, oh,
Hmm.
boom. This guy just exposed the public-private partnership of fascism between corporations and the government. And
Wow. Wow.
it was like click, 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 click. And I called somebody who was a friend of mine, Brian Weinstein. He owns Synergy Health, a great telemedicine company. And I said, Brian, I just listened to Trump talk about this. He goes, oh, I know Zev. I go, you do? I said, introduce me. So he introduced me to Dr. Zelenko, and I did his first interview, and we just became great friends. And so when he was at the end of life, he asked if I would co-chair his foundation, the Zelenko Freedom Foundation, with an amazing man, Kevin Jenkins, who is, in my opinion, one of the brightest stars in the medical freedom movement. Not only does he know all the best doctors, but he has been out there stumping and fighting for body sovereignty and medical freedom for years. I think he's crossed the country. He's done 75 cities, over 400,000 miles in the past 2 years. And
Wow.
he's on the
Wow.
road right now again. I mean, the guy just is relentless. So we're very
Wow.
blessed to be working together and in the honor of Dr. Zelenko and carrying forward his legacy.
Dr. Zelenko, his backstory is that he had, almost like a vision from God, or this was kind of put into his heart, or could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I actually asked him, how did you come up with this? Because he didn't Google it up and find that it was in there either. But he said he did get a vision from God. He was really literally stressed to the max under the gun as a Orthodox Jew living in Monroe, New York, 1 square mile, 35,000 Orthodox Jewish people living in that community. They were really hit hard. They were at ground zero for coronavirus in the early
Wow.
days. And so he was seeing, people in his community just die and become extremely sick and and being told, you can't come to the hospital until you can't breathe. Well, at that point, it was too late. So,
Hmm.
like you said, through a vision, he decided to try this and he recognized that hydroxychloroquine was what he called the proverbial gun. It's an ionosphere, and zinc was the actual bullet. So if you had hydroxychloroquine and zinc paired together, you could shoot that bullet into the viral cell, and zinc would do what it always does, kill the virus. And I can tell
Wow.
you, I'm never without zinc. I always have it with me, and I always have either ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or quercetin. Today I'm traveling with quercetin and ivermectin because I travel all the time. And I stay very healthy. It's when I don't have it for an extended period of time and I'm around a lot of people, I might pick up a sniffle. But as soon as I get it, I pound that stuff, gone. Never gets any worse than a little head cold.
That's amazing.
So,
So, all right, we're in a lot of turmoil as a country. Obviously, it feels like, I mean, they're not sparing any techniques, strategies in terms of attacking the people. I mean, we're under full scale attack at this point. Children, people dying because of these COVID vaccines and these hospital death camps and wars. I mean, where's this going? What's your kind of best future prediction on what like the next like 5 years holds?
well, I don't want to sound doom and gloom because, the Bible will tell you not everybody gets to go. Okay. So we have to
Hmm.
keep everything in context. I remember I started this off with the Bible, basic instruction before leaving earth, but it's also the law of the land. That's where everything flows from.
Hmm.
We have to, first of all, embrace that. We have to embrace God. We have to trust in our Savior. And we have to get people to come back to that. And I think the fact that people are seeing so much evil everywhere, this story with Pfizer, for all the people who bought into the vaccine to now see this, they must be. My heart breaks for them. So we have
Hmm.
to be compassionate for these people, and we have to offer them hope, and we have to try and help them help themselves. But we cannot give them false hope and say somebody's going to come and save you, because there is no white hats that are coming. There's, Trump isn't going to come in on a white horse. We all want him to, but it's not going to it's
Hmm.
not that's not how it works. It's the people, God's army, God's children. That's how it's always been. And if you do the work in his honor to glorify him, we will come together and deliver that. But I'd say over the next 5 years, we're going to see some pretty dramatic stuff. I know President Trump says the best is yet to come, and I believe that, but he doesn't put a timeline to it. There's
Hmm.
no timeline. It's all events driven. I've talked to a lot of people close inside the inner circle over the last several years, and people thought things were going to manifest more quickly, but it really is a function of how quickly can we wake people up. And this is a terrible analogy, but little Johnny or little Susie asks mommy all the time, "Can I touch the stove?" And mommy's like, "Stay away." When she's not looking, little Johnny or Susie touches the stove, and now they're screaming with a burnt hand. And unfortunately, that's the analogy for what's happened in the world. We started to trust the wrong people because people made it so attractive. That beautiful red hot stove is so pretty. You want to
Hmm.
touch it, or there's something, delicious up there, but we don't know that you can't touch the pot. I mean, it's just we haven't really listened to what our body, our intuition was telling us. We didn't use our discernment. We just allowed the blood money, great name for the show, to be
Hmm.
that shiny object, and we listened to the talking bobbleheads on mainstream media. So now we're in this deprogramming phase, the rise of new media, shows like yours that are getting the information out. We have to constantly stay on message and stay true to, really, what would God want us to do? What is our discernment telling us to do? And I think we're going to see pandemics. We're going to see more of them because they're going to keep pumping them out. They've got biolabs all over the place. We're going to see
Hmm.
famine because they've been shutting down fertilizer plants. They've taken, they're trying to geoengineer the atmosphere by pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. They've
Hmm.
got a war on nitrogen. The Dutch are clearly under war. The Dutch government is bought up. I don't know how many farms over there. Hundreds and hundreds of farms have been bought by the Dutch government, and these people are being put out of business. We're seeing cattle here in the United States. 10,000 heads of cattle die all of a sudden. Like, what's that about? How's that even happening? So there is an attack. How many food processing plants have gone up? We're going to see pandemic. We're going to see famine. And we're going to see war. Michael Yon talks about this. All of the ingredients are there right now, Vem.
Hmm.
And Is there a timeline for how bad it's going to be? Is there a spark? No, it's condition driven, as Jan will tell you. It's conditions driven, and all the conditions are ripe right now. And a lot of this is driven because the globalists, the international banking cabal, is watching their fiat currency go completely bankrupt. We're about to approach hyperinflation in the next couple of years. And we're
Hmm.
also up against what, the cabal doesn't want, which is sound money. And that's what the BRICS basket of currency is presenting, with the nation's 65% of the world going to gold-backed blockchain currency.
Wow.
That's going to shake the international banking cabal, and they can't have that. So hence the reason we're going into this world war um, chain of events, and they're
Hmm.
bringing everything at it. They've created the pandemic, they're creating the famine, and that's going to drive the war. And they
Hmm.
hope because of that, those distractions will keep all of us unsettled, so that we will just, so please help us. We're too helpless. We're starving. Somebody feed me. We're not
Yeah.
working together to build our victory farms and do all these things. So we're going to go through a major shakeup, and we're going to see, unfortunately, a lot more death. If I had a crystal ball, I'd say probably 1 billion people will perish over the next 5 or 10 years because of all of this,
Yeah.
horrible stuff. But we can change that. We just need to get people educated. We
I mean,
absolutely can change that.
the goal, it seems like, for all the freedom loving people is for the banking cabal to fall apart, which also means our entire economy falls apart. I mean, it's kind of like this mutual self destruction, mostly, right?
Yeah,
But
well, it
at
doesn't.
the
It
end of
doesn't.
it,
Don't you think we would start bartering and start trading? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I do. I've already been doing it. I'm already doing it. I actually keep a little silver and a little gold for that purpose, but I haven't had to use it. There's other means in which we can do trade. I mean, advertising is a great, if you have advertisers for your show, you're talking about their products and they're, paying you, but there's another way to do it. I mean, you can just, give a cell phone for whatever. There's lots of
yeah,
things you
yeah.
can barter and trade. Food becomes a commodity big time. Michael Jan is a big believer in food as a commodity. I agree with him. I was bought, what was it? How many dozen eggs did I buy today? I was shocked. $28, $29. And I bought 52 eggs. Yeah,
Wow.
52 eggs. Yeah, because we've got family coming up here and they all eat eggs like, like it's going out of style.
Yeah,
$28. I'm like, I've never
yeah.
spent that kind of money on eggs. $9 a
Yeah.
dozen. This is crazy.
Really, where it's at is like having our own farms. It's funny because I think a lot of
Yeah.
these globalists are like city folks. They don't understand that if the people had to resort to growing their own stuff, having their own chickens and rabbits and whatever other animals are necessary, I mean, they lose their power completely at that point.
Well, I mean, you look at the shift that COVID brought, right? All the white collar workers all of a sudden learned how to work from home. How many times have you seen the funny videos of the guy in a shirt and tie with his underwear on, or
Yeah.
nothing? It's like, these are the things that happen, but people have made the transition. I'm able to travel constantly and deliver a daily show because I can work from wherever. I can do my research on planes or in the car or when I'm sitting around or whatever, and then, put a show together. I can do guest appearances like this. This is how we're supposed to be able to move with our families and do what we want. And work is
Hmm.
supposed to just support that. It's not supposed to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right now, for me, this is what I do most of the time. My kids are mostly grown because I'm so passionate that I don't want to leave this world for my children, the mess that it's in now. But my kids are having to witness the transition and go through it. They're going to be a lot stronger than my generation because they will have grown up with this. So
Hmm.
we're having to kind of come to the terms in reality. I mean, 5 years ago, if you told me we were going to have a pandemic like this and they would have, there'd be famines and we'd be at the brink of world war. I was like, no, it's not. What are you talking about? Even with
Yeah.
Obama, I was like, that's not happening. Holy cow. Look at
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we are today.
Agenda 2030, that's their goal. By 2030, it's like that's their target for us, basically becoming their slaves and their serfs or whatever. Let's talk about Vote 2024. You're talking to Trump's lawyers, and seems like there's been a lot of issues with Arizona. Seems like, excuse the French, but the fuckery is still happening. How do
Hmm.
we overcome that? I mean, is there a chance for a Trump or DeSantis to win in 2024 with this nonsense still happening?
It's again, this goes back to the corporation. If we don't get control and start eliminating these agencies like the Election Assistance Commission, which uh, basically hires Canadian firms to certify the Dominion machines I mean,
I can't believe like
just
Canadian
stop him.
firms.
Right. Like, okay, that's called foreign interference in your election. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this is the kind of insanity that goes on. But again, the general public doesn't know that. They go, oh, there's an EAC, an Election Assistance Commission, overseeing the machines. We have somebody over, there's oversight. Yeah, that's the fox guarding the hen house. Look at CISA.
Hmm. Yeah.
That whole, Cyber Intelligence Security Administration, that was clearly set up and designed to steal the election.
Hmm.
That guy, Chris Krebs, the most safest election,
Yeah.
BS. That was all
Yeah.
set up and designed to steal our elections. If we don't come to reality that all of these agencies are BS and need to be just like literally detonated, digitally speaking, not go and blow things up in real life
Hmm.
kinetically. But I'm saying just get rid of these agencies if we can't get to that point. But the only way we're going to get to that point is the people have to literally go and demand from their local governments. It has to start in the city, the municipality, in the county, and say, we're not voting on machines anymore. It's just not happening. We are not doing it. And
Hmm.
this is why, as a state national, I say, you know what, this is when, I'm going to throw this out there as a Kerry Lake example. Kerry
Hmm.
Lake won Arizona. Katie Hobbs
Yeah.
knows it. All
Yeah.
those demons know it. Okay. The
Yeah.
whole world knows it. It's a joke. Now, why not? I mean, sounds a little, crazy, but I'm going to say it anyway because
Hmm.
somebody has to. If Kerry Lake were to stand up and say, you know what, we all know, Arizona, that you voted me as your governor. So how about we all govern ourselves and we stop listening to the de facto corporation over there?
Yeah.
Katie Hobbs is
Yeah.
not working for you. She's working for herself. Clearly, they've lied and they've obfuscated
Yeah.
and they've stolen votes. We've seen the evidence. So why do we even pay them homage? I say,
Yeah.
tell people all the time, why do you pay the District of Corruption, that dumpster fire, homage?
Yeah.
Forget it.
Pretend they don't exist.
Pretend they don't exist. Like you said,
Yeah.
if we all grow locally, have our own foods and crops in our own little neighborhoods, we can sustain ourselves. We don't need Safeway, Publix, Winn-Dixie, or you name the grocery store, whole
Hmm.
paychecks to feed us. We can live off eggs and lettuce and stuff. It might not be as robust as what we become, spoiled with, but you start to read the ingredients and you wonder where the real pandemic is. It's obesity in this
Yeah.
country and malnutrition,
Yeah.
because they've been poisoning us. So why not get back to basics and see how much healthier you are when you start eating really good food as opposed to the poison that you get on the supermarket shelves in your bags of Ruffles?
You're telling me I got to give up my sushi?
I didn't say that. Sushi? I did not say that. Are you
I
kidding?
don't I don't know if I'm proficient enough to make my own sushi at this point on the farm, but I'll try my best.
Oh, well,
Um,
you could get some YouTube videos and learn how to make your own, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, totally. So I want to present a mathematical equation because I've been following the state national thing quite a bit.
Okay.
According to my math right now, based upon having some conversations with some state national folks that were doing, I think, Freedom of Information Act requests, it's close to. So it started off with about 45,000 prior to the 2020 election, and 40,000 of those were lawyers, by the way, which is very interesting. That went through the state national process. From what I understand right now, that number, I believe, has hit around 15 million.
That's exactly right. And
So,
okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, no. Sorry, I apologize. So the point I'm trying to make is, okay, we're at 15 million, and it's obviously, I mean, probably every day it's rising rapidly, right?
Yeah.
Like those numbers get to a certain point that those state nationals, I know they have assemblies around the country and stuff, but they have now a legitimate argument for having a legitimate assembly that's enforced by law. That's the big thing, the enforcement. What do you think?
Oh, this is what I was just saying. I mean, you have enough people that decide to disregard the de facto corporate entity and create their own du jour government of the people, a real government of, by, and for the people. It's well, let me see if I can make this a little bit easier to understand. Um, you have a neighborhood, and the neighborhood can't agree on what color they want to, paint all the houses. So the neighborhood, instead of being one neighborhood, splits into two, and you have two different homeowners association. One has their set of rules, the other has the other set of rules. Or you have just adjoining neighborhoods, but everybody's a different HOA, but they're all part of the same community, right? Same town. So you have golf course here with their 50 homes, you have another golf course with 150 homes or whatever. They all have different rules, and people choose to live in that golf course community or that golf course community. It's kind of the same thing, right? So you live
Hmm.
in the state of Florida, you can either be a part of the state of Florida or you can be part of the other state of Florida over here, the real free state. And you watch and see, like you said, from 40,000 to 15 million in just 2.5 short years. You watch and see how many people go, why am I subjugating myself to all these rules, mandates, and crap over here when I can be
Yeah.
over here? It becomes very self-evident. And eventually they flame out. It's just sort of like we say, don't fund your own guillotine. Stop shopping at Walmart. Stop shopping at Home Depot. Buy
Hmm.
local, grow local, trade locally. You start doing that and taking care of mom and pop, which is who they terminated during COVID. You became a non-essential business, but Home Depot was, Walmart was.
Hmm.
What? What's the difference? Mask up and go to a big box store? What, are you kidding me? So,
Yeah.
that was so by design, because again, that's the freedom of the people able to sustain themselves versus you are now subject to what the corporation allows you to shop and buy and buy. And if they get their way with CBDC, trust me, people like you and me, Vem, we're going to be relegated to 5 square miles around our house. Our CBDC won't work unless,
Hmm.
except where they allow us to shop. You think they're going to let me get on a plane and go stump and speak with General Flynn all over the country?
Yeah.
Fat
Yeah.
chance. My gas
Totally.
card won't work driving across the country. I better have gold and silver in my pocket and pay the Exxon guy that way, or find another way to travel. Hopefully I'll have a Tesla car soon. That's a real Tesla car with real Tesla energy. That would
You're
be
talking
really
about
exciting.
The OG Tesla.
The OG.
The OG Tesla. Awesome. So what's next for you, Ann? What do you have coming up? What's your kind of 2023 looking like? Any particular goals or?
Yeah, well, to keep, to build a foundation, I'm very committed to the Zelenko Freedom Foundation. We have a couple of great initiatives. We have Common Ground Campus, which is where we are going into universities and high schools around the country, and we're bringing the right and left student body together, and we're talking about certain subjects. One of the ones I was at was the University of Houston, and we said, let's discuss whether or not federal loans should be, relieved. Should you be relieved of the debt? And so you had two different groups from the right and the left talk about it. And I got to tell you, them, the solutions they came up with when they listened to one another, they
Hmm.
weren't talking past each other or yelling at each other. And the ground rule is you can't say you're wrong. They came up with the most amazing solutions on how to deal with the burgeoning federal loan debt. It was really quite brilliant. So that's
Wow.
become very popular. We want to support that. We raise money around these programs because, that's what you have to do. They cost money to do. So we're very committed to funding that, as well as our Zelenko Fellows program, which is bringing basically in young academic and interning them into the various initiatives of the foundation. So one of the initiatives we do is media. I host the Zelenko Report. I've got a
Hmm.
fellow by the name of Alex Stone. He's tremendous. He has interviewed Kerry Lake, General Flynn, many other folks of notoriety, and many that aren't notorious, but they should be because they're brilliant and he's brilliant. So we're fostering those programs in addition to incubating technologies and solutions, I should say, really
Hmm.
to the problems we have at hand from the health side. We want to take Florida, make it the model healthcare market, transition Florida out of this whole sick care paradigm into a true well healthcare state. And it's going to use, new technologies we talked about, in addition to telemedicine, in addition to mRNA-free blood banking. So, and then of course, we need to find partners, and we're partnering with a lot of other nonprofit organizations to get that done, plus developing public policy that can be, moved through the de facto state legislature, like what we've gotten passed in Florida, or not passed. It's in the process of being reviewed in the state house right now. SB 222, which basically says you can't talk to me about my vaccine status, or any of my vaccination status, and you no longer can force me into any of it. No more mandates, masks, none of that. Governor DeSantis has been talking about it, and we had that drafted, and now it's in the House right now. So this is exciting
Wow.
stuff. This is
Wow.
where we're
Amazing.
going, and a lot more stuff on the horizon. Whoops.
So,
Lot.
I think this will be my last question. But for the viewer that doesn't understand the difference between sick care and healthcare, and what the vision of healthcare, real
Mm.
healthcare, looks like in the future compared to the system that we have in place, I mean, how would you explain that?
Okay, so right now, if you're going into the the sick care system, I should call it. It's the
Hmm.
big insurance conglomeration along with the big medical conglomeration. They work hand in glove, right?
Hmm.
Hand in
Hmm.
glove, and of course the Medicare piece of it as well. We have got to bust this paradigm because insurance has gotten to be so over the top expensive. Nobody can afford it. Nobody
Hmm.
can afford my health insurance. Just for me alone is pushing $800 a month. That's
Wow.
just me, right? And I mean, granted, I've always had good coverage, but I'm also a 2-time cancer survivor. But now I've changed my diet. I've changed what I take in terms of supplements. I've educated myself on other ways to prevent getting errant, um, cells in my body that
Mhm.
create cancer. It's a whole process. So this isn't just about eliminating the insurance company. It's about revamping everybody's, giving people a lot more tools and arsenals and or tools in their arsenal to take care of their own health, show them how
Mhm.
they need to be a lot more self-reliant and responsible for their own health, because so many people just think, oh, I go to a doctor, he waves a magic wand and I'm better. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. We need to get back to integrative nutrition, integrative medicine, more holistic approach. And we need to deprogram the brainwashing, which is a part of it. It's an education piece that's been
Mhm.
missing significantly, because where are you getting educated? On the television set, brought to you by Pfizer. And then they rattle off in 60 seconds in warp speed all the different things that can kill you because of the medicine that they're pushing at the time. And isn't it interesting, Vem, that right now here in Colorado, every commercial break, they're reminding you to take the vaccine, and then following up by that is a Pfizer commercial, how to protect your
Yeah.
heart. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, your bioweapon has created myocarditis and heart attacks all over the
Like
place.
you,
So
you poison us and then you give us the cure. Thank you
create the
very
problem
much.
and then create the solution, right? That Hegelian dialect. That's exactly right.
Yep. Yep. I mean, how do we? Sorry, I said it was my last question, but how do we
That's okay.
it's a big monster that we're going after. That's like you're talking about
One bite at a
such
time.
powerful forces, it's like David and Goliath. I guess there was David and Goliath for a reason. We
Yeah,
know the parable
it's
is possible.
how do you eat an elephant, Vem? How do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, yeah,
One bite at a time.
exactly.
There is nobody coming to save us. We are the solution. And the only
Yeah.
way we become the solution is we get educated. I know people are just, yeah. This is where I have an issue with organized religion,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
opposed to people who have an individual relationship with God. I have a problem with organized religion because it's taught people your pastor is going to save you.
Yeah,
They have the answer. They could
yeah,
be counsel, but they're not going to save you. You have to take the message and deliver the solution yourself. And this is
yeah.
where we are. We've all been programmed to believe somebody's going to come and save us. And we basically transformed our society into a socialistic model of how we think of things. And we depend on the state, and we've all become victims of the nanny state. Not all of us, but we have to
Mhm.
recognize that majority of the people are victims of the nanny state. And we've got to get out of that mentality and recognize we're the government. We are the government, we the people. God gave us our
Yeah,
rights, and we created a government to help deliver services, but they've ballooned. So this is one bite at a time. That's really what it comes down to. One bite
yeah.
at a time. It's a process.
It is. It is. It's
Embrace
gonna
the
be fun.
suck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know what? Look, it's fun too. I was researching how to. I've never thought ever in my life I'd be trying to figure out how to incubate eggs, and I actually learned how to incubate eggs now. So I got, I'm going to get, for the farm in the
That's
future. We're
so
going to get,
cool.
yeah.
That's so cool. I'm going to tell my husband that. He'll love it. He grew up on a farm. That's awesome.
That's awesome. So, Ann, was there anything we didn't talk about that you'd like to mention? Any websites, your social media, anything?
Yeah, well, sure. Our website for the foundation is zfreedomfoundation.org. We would appreciate, folks stopping by there. Any support they want to lend the foundation is greatly appreciated, because we have some, big agendas. We've got an event coming up in Austin in April with Del Bigtree and Mickey Willis. It's part of our Z Talk speaker series.
Hmm.
That's going to be tremendous. We had an event scheduled for March. Unfortunately, the donor who asked us to put on the event and fund it has just recently told us they're unable to financially meet that obligation. So we've had to cancel that event. So but that's okay. We're a young foundation. We're just getting started. And so there's a lot better ways we can spend our money than having a lavish event, which would have raised money, I'm sure would have done very well. But we figured, what, it's better that we're continue to pump what we're doing into the program so that we can be out in the field with the people and really having an impact, particularly on our youth, which is the future. We need to continually help our youth make sense of the madness and get them out of this deprogram from the CRT, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm actually, like you say, you embrace the suck. I'm embracing this journey. Dr. Zelenko is a marvelous, magnificent human being, and he was a gift to us for the short amount of time that we had him, that we knew of him. So this is our life's work. So go to zfreedomfoundation.com or .org.
Thank you, and thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, and honestly, thank you for your just intelligence, the way you put this stuff together and explain it. is really helpful, and I'm hoping the viewers understand this whole, dual government situation we have here between the corp and our original landmass governments. And the more people transition, the faster we could start government that actually listens to us.
It's a retrolution. We're returning. It's retroactive. We're going back to our roots. I call it a retrolution, not a revolution. That way the FBI won't come knocking on my door and kidnap me, because that's essentially what it would be.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ann. And thank you, viewers, for showing up. Check out americahappens.com tonight for our next episode coming up this weekend. And again, Ann, thank you so much for your time on it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.